All right, let's get started. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
How are we doing today?
We are doing lovely.
All right. There's Erin. Hi, Erin. Um, we're gonna just review the closing process today. There's been a lot of questions coming about it, and we have rolled this out in many other areas. And just every so often, it helps to have a review, make sure we're all on the same page, get feedback from people, see if there's any best practices that can be applied, or anything like that. So that's what we're here for today, and just answer any questions that we have. We have some new people into hubs, so we just thought now is a good time to do it. I just pulled up a random closing that we have, and I picked one that had escrow on it because I thought it would be kind of the most relevant for one. So if there's any that anybody has a specific question on, go ahead and reach out and we can cover that too. But today we were just going to specifically cover the commission part of the closing. So at this point, everything's already in Account Tech. And if we have questions on that at the end, we can review some of that. But for now, right now, all the information would be already in the system. It would just be at the point that the title company has now issued the check and the agent's given that to us. We will, just for the future reference, though, be hosting a training on adding the financial information in that stuff into Account Tech, probably within the next week or two. So if you have questions on that can be a little bit confusing. There's a lot of different scenarios. So look for that to come soon. So the first thing that I do when I get a commission check is look the property up in Account Tech. There's a couple of things that I have open when I'm processing a closing. I try to have as much information in the system prior to this because, as we know, sometimes we get these checks late, and we're in a crunch to get them in by the cutoff time. If it is close to the cutoff time, I do like to reach out to the commission specialists to let them know that I have one coming in. That kind of helps them prepare to get their side ready, because they do get a lot at close, and we try to keep the agents informed of that and process them as they come in, but we do know that we do get some at the end. So the first thing that I would do is, when I got a check, is I would pull it up in Account Tech. And the reason for this is I need to check the escrow tab and make sure there's no additional escrow funds held on this property. We have the option now, if there's enough commission money, to cover the escrow and leave that and let the title company deduct it. And then we would just write that back to ourselves to make up for that difference. We do need to make sure the reason we have to write a check is because legal reasons, I believe. And that is because we cannot hold escrow money. We can't hold commission money in an escrow account, or I don't know, auditing or something. Maybe Carrie has more on that, but I know that there's legal reasons that we can't combine those two monies. So we do have a commission account as well as an escrow account. And when the title company holds the funds, we have to move the earnest money from the escrow account to our commission account, because that's where the money is pulled to pay the agent. So that's kind of the idea of depositing the commission check in the commission account. Does anybody have questions on those two accounts so far? Or Erin, do you have anything to add on those?
Or no, Amy? I guess I would just say that we have a fiduciary responsibility to hold the escrow money separate. It's not allowed to be commingled with our money. So that's why we went to these two separate accounts, like Jessica was talking about. And that's why we've kind of put in a heightened focused on the escrow money and trying to make sure that we're handling that in the absolute best way possible that meets, our obligation with that money. So we just can't be perceived to mix that with our money or used it for any of our own business. And that's why we have it in that separate account.
Perfect. In addition to that, if we do hold the escrow money, and if there's not enough money to cover that commission from the escrow, we have to cut the check to the title company. And either the agent, if they don't give us enough notice, needs to take the check to the closing, or we can mail it. But we can't split that escrow. We either have to fully cover it, cover the full escrow amount to the title company, or they need to deduct a full amount. We wouldn't send a partial payment to them for the same reasons as before. And also for reconciling, it just gets really messy and confusing. So just on that note, I did have a closing that I had an example of, and it was this one. So Gaylord's the lucky office today. So first of all, I would just go to my escrow account and double check that this has a balance of 0. Now, sometimes there's funds held for other reasons, but most often it's pretty rare, and this is gonna need to be zeroed out. So I'm just gonna start by writing a check, and the bank account it's gonna come from is my escrow account. And I'm gonna update my check number. So I'm gonna pick my bank account, and I'm gonna notate my check number from the check that I'm gonna print. Just say that. And then the date is today's date. And now you can see here that my balance is $2,000. You can double check the purchase agreement and the closing cover sheet, but most often I'm going to cut that check for the same amount that we have deposited. My escrow payee is gonna be CB, once it pops up, is CB Schmidt. And it's going to be a supplier. Oops. You can see the first one that comes up is the supplier. We don't want the referral. That's a whole separate entity thing. So we're gonna just pick this first one that comes up. Now we're writing it to ourselves because essentially we're just transferring money to our commission account. So I'm gonna go ahead and just post and print this check. And you can see here that my check is ready to print. I'm not actually going to print it, but you can see that it is in the check layout. If anybody has any issues with the check not matching up in the layout of the check, say that these aren't lining up, it's typically a driver setting, and you just need to fit the page in the actual driver. So just something, if you want to reach out after, if you're having that issue, just let somebody know. So now you can see I have a 0 balance here. So all my money is accounted for the title company as well as our side of that. So now I would have my commission check, and I don't actually have checks, so I apologize for that. But now I have this $2,000, and then I'm gonna have my commission check that's $2,000 short. And I'm going to deposit this in Huntington. And even though I have 2 checks, I'm going to make it 1 deposit for the full escrow amount, or for the full commission amount. Does anybody have questions on the Huntington side of it? Or Erin, do you want me to cover that? Are you seeing that there's any questions?
I think mostly everybody has it. I think the big thing is just to make sure it's 1 deposit, because whatever happens in the escrow tab needs to mirror what happened in the bank. So that's why we just ask that, go in as 1 deposit. And the 1 deposit represents the entirety of the commission check. So that's the other reason why we do it that way.
Sure. So I would put my commission check with the admin fee, with the additional commission, and I would make that whole, I would put the total deposit as that amount. And now I may have to scan 1 check and then scan another check and another for it to balance out, but it is still 1 deposit, and then transmit that deposit. And then you can close and transmit. And then once you've closed and transmitted, you get a transmission report. But technically prior to that, now that I have my full commission and my commission checks, I would go scan these checks to myself. And while I'm scanning the checks to myself, I'm also scanning my closing packet if the title company did not digitally send it to me. So there's 4 things that you need in a closing packet or a closing folder. And those 4 things, I guess let's back up. So now that I have my commission all figured out, I've gone and I've scanned my stuff. And now I need to get this stuff from my email to my dot loop. The easiest way I find this loop and this correct loop is I tag every one of my loops with this ID number from Account Tech. So I can search the address in dot loop, but I've definitely found it easier that as agents turn paperwork in and submit it to me, I tag the loop with the ID number so that I know that that's the correct loop. Sometimes you're going to find listings. Sometimes you'll find other agents' deals that didn't go through. You'll just find that there's oftentimes more than one loop for these transactions. So I tend to search by the ID number. So 3970323 is what I would search in there. And you can search that right here in the search field. Keep in mind, my offices don't match up, but this is pure training. And now you can see I have this here. You can see my tag pop up, and that's the correct address. So I'm just going to click on it and open this loop. So I'm a little bit ahead of here. I can see it right here. My purchase docs are approved for commission. So there's nothing more I know I need to do with those. If I didn't have my purchase docs in an approved for commission status, I would want to go back and look at those just to verify that I'm not missing any paperwork. We're clear to pay this agent. They have all the recommended or required documents and such, and everything's signed. So I'm just going to go ahead. I drag my closing cover sheet up to my closing folder, which I do need to create. And you can create a folder by just clicking add folder and creating a folder. And then I just drag my stuff around. And you can see these have not been submitted. I'm just going to put this back and archive this one. So now I have my check scanned into my email, and I have my closing packet from the title company scanned. And I have my closing cover sheet. So what I do now is just take a look. I gotta get in the right one. I do have a live and a training. I just go and I start at the property basics. I just kind of double check all the information's in there. Make sure we're not missing anything. Nothing really in features and nothing really in agents, unless you have a team or somebody gets volume and somebody gets commission. That's where you can go ahead and add a secondary agent on here and then just adjust your regional and your gross so that those splits match what they would get. Most of that information is on the closing cover sheet. I do double check my people and make sure I have my buyer and seller, all necessary information, my financing, and my mortgage and my title. And the escrow tab we already did, and we zeroed that out. And now I'm just going to the commission tab, and this is where I'm going to enter my commission check information. So now my commission check is my commission amount, and most title companies will separate this out for you, apart from the admin fee. So you just go ahead, and this is an older one that probably was prior to the $295. You put in your transaction fee here because the buyer paid for this one. So this is already coming with the commission check. If the agent pays it, it's going to go on like this net list or net sell. But I do believe the commission specialist just preferred you to just write that in here and not adjust any boxes on those tabs.
This tab is like where I typically see the most mistakes happen. So I always like to say that when you're filling this tab out, make sure that you have your check and the check stub right in front of you. The biggest things that we see is either that maybe when this deal was first put together, the commission was 3%, but somewhere along the line, they renegotiated that down to 2%. So the check is actually for 2%, but it's in the computer as 3%. And sometimes you guys don't catch that there's been a change. So this screen will actually not match the check at all. So you just want to make sure you're really paying attention that, you know, what is listed in the screen is actually what's on the check in front of you. And then usually the other big miss on here is the transaction fee, whether it's either not put in there or it's the wrong amount. So you just want to make sure, because whatever you put in this screen feeds into the next screen, which is where I do most of my work. So if you don't put your numbers in, then my numbers don't look correct in there, and I have to manually manipulate, or I have to come back to this screen and correct it so that everything gels. So this is like the biggest one that kind of gets overlooked when you guys are doing closings. So if you maybe just slow a little down when you get to this screen, that is usually helpful.
On that note, I do always verify selling price and the commission price from the closing packet. And the closing packet has all the information on there, and they have messed up. They've made mistakes, and I've had to call the title companies and say, you know, I think we're short a little bit of commission, or, you know, just verifying information with them. So it's important that I always verify with the agents if your dollars don't match what we have also on the closing cover sheet. I sometimes reach out to the agent and say, and then they're like, oh yeah, there was an issue. In order to keep the sale, we lowered our commission or something like that. So you do want to double check that all of your numbers do match. Your check totals and your total deposit should all be on this right here. So you do want to add those up. You may need to get a calculator. Going quick.
Sorry. You know what I like to do? Is like you go up to the print button and it like, yeah. And then I just print this out because it shows the breakdown of everything and it shows the amount due. So like right there, balance due.
I have never heard that. Good to know.
And if you scroll down, it'll show the breakout of, you know, the company dollar and.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Oh, that is interesting.
Well, that's a new one for me.
In all the Q&As I've attended, Becky, they've never ever shown this.
Oh, really? That's how I just learned how to do it. I mean, I started doing it from the beginning. So you don't really need to get your calculator out.
Oh, that's a good tip, though.
Yeah. Most checks do break it down. So they'll separate the admin fee and then sometimes it's a flat rate commission and you can just type that here. Sometimes it is a percentage. So you can typically fill in one of these boxes and they're going to match. While we're here, I always double check the closing cover sheet for a referral. A referral is probably the number one thing that gets missed. And it really starts with the ASCs to make sure we get that in there, because then it goes to our commission specialist. And on the old closing cover sheet, it was very easy to miss. We did move the box in hopes that it would be with the same, the commission. So that's, we're hopeful that will stand out a little bit more, but it is easy to miss. I've done it myself. So with the closing cover sheet, I just verify the sell price. I verify the commission price, because sometimes there is concessions, and that's sometimes based on that commission price. And then I just double check and make sure there's no referral. And in this case, let's just say we missed one and we're going to add one. See, there's a 25% referral. I just put in the less referral right here. So I additionally start right here. And then I need to go and I click save. It does the math for me. And then I just need to add the company. So when we add a referral, we always pay a broker. I'm going to pay, and then if you remember in the beginning, we also have a CB Schmidt. And this one is the referral flyer. And it is going to be the 100% of the referral. And you can see my dollars match here and here. And now I have my company. So in order to just kind of help the commission specialist out, now I go into my commission notes and I pay, and I state the name of the agent. Commission paid to, let's just say, for Carrie's sake, Jeff Scum. And maybe at this one too, agent pays transaction fee. I would not have a transaction fee in there, but this is where you would notate things like that. So anytime you just want to communicate with your commission specialist, this is a really good spot to put these things. This does, I do believe, pop up prior to paying the agent. So it's just a one more way that they don't miss these things if we're writing them there. Mm-hmm. Any questions or comments, Erin, or does anybody have questions so far on this?
So for the referral part, this is one that I've started to see some different things pop up that we're not paying a broker. So if it's being paid to an agent that exists in Coldwell Banker Schmidt, that's when you're going to use CB Schmidt. I've seen a lot pop up lately that it'll say CB Schmidt, and then behind it, it'll say Jeff Scomp, and you have had to create a specific profile for that. So we wouldn't want to create a profile that said CB Schmidt dash Jeff Scomp, because we really are just paying the broker, and then it's up to the broker to disperse those funds to their agent. So it should always just be the broker, whether it's Coldwell Banker Schmidt, it's C21, whoever it is, it should always just go to the broker. There shouldn't be an agent name behind it. There are, I'm sure, some few exceptions that you might see out there, but for the most part, it's always going to just be solely to the broker.
Very true. Anybody have questions on that or anything so far? Really, that's okay. So then the only thing really more I do for this part is just, I do click down to the net cell and I just double check that I haven't checked the box to override that if for a reason. Now that if the commission plans are written right, there really shouldn't be a need to check these boxes, but we just want to double check it. I don't change anything on here. That is completely up to Erin to do. You don't really even need to go to this tab as long as the information here. The other thing I want to make sure that's on here is that we have our co-broke. This is where we add our co-broke information. And just remember, you can add the office, or we need to add the office and then the agent, because the agent attaches to the office. But if we do know that they're in the system, we can add the agent. We can go directly to the agent and why don't we just add it? And I'll give you an example. But this is the screen we add our co-broke, and we do run reports on this. So we do want to just double check that they're here. And I know that this person is already in here. Let's just do this one. So I can skip, and you can see right here, they're co-broke agents, and then they're not an office. I can skip right to it, and it automatically selects her office because she's already in the system and she's been added correctly. So she's already attached to that office. So you can just click add. If I did go to add the agent and they were not in the system, I have to back out and then go and attach the office first and then go add the agent profile, or it won't attach it to that office. And then that's where we get a lot of the duplicates. So at this point now, I'm going to stop, even though I'm not done in this system, because there's one last task I need to do. But right now I've gone and I've done my work through Account Tech. I'm going to go do my stuff through Dotloop. And somewhere I have a tab. Okay. So now I've got my, I've dragged my my closing cover sheet up. I've double checked, and I don't have this filled out or I would show you, but I do check the information. I check my sale price. I double check the commission. I double check the admin fee and the referral, and for any special notes or anything like that. And that's pretty much that. The next thing I do, and now I have my transmission report and my closing packet from the title company that I've scanned to myself. So I need to get those into Dotloop. So let's just say I need an attachment, not that. Here we go, a listing agreement. All right, so say this is my commission check. I just download, I can go back, I can go to my next one, and I can get my commission check. And here we go. We got all of our stuff. I just download them all. I click back to Dotloop, and I just did the wrong one. Typically, I have these all in the same browser. Yeah. All right, I'm on the struggle bus a little bit here. There we go. Like these are there. So I can just drop and drag. I click add document. If you want to email them to yourself, that's totally fine. If you want to save them and then pick them from your computer, but I just like to just download them and drop and drag. I do find it's the fastest. And then I don't need to refresh or anything like that. So now you just make sure, pretend like those are, oops. Now you just make sure that there's no additional, I am gonna archive these because we're just gonna pretend that I put the correct documents in. And then you will need to rename them, commission check, but there should only be 4 documents in this closing packet unless there's a referral. If there's a referral, there should be 5, or if there's like additional closing packets or something, but we don't need the purchase agreement. We don't need anything else because when they're closing this, they want to be able to easily see these things. So I do label the transmission report, and I will say I would label it transmission report and then dash address because we do save these on our computer. And if you do need to reference one, it's a lot easier to find the address than to go through everything. All the same label. So just something to keep in mind for the future. So now we have our commission check. We have our closing packet from the title company. We have our closing cover sheet that I've dragged up from my purchase docs. And I have my transmission report from Huntington. So I have all of these things in there and ready to go. So now all I have to do is submit for review. And I always submit Dotloop first so that I know that they're getting the right loop, and that they have the necessary documents in order to process that closing. And I try to do them at the same time. So I immediately go from closing docs and I submit my closing as the closing, and I submit. And now you can see that change to ready to close. And I'm gonna just now go to account tech and go to my basics and mark this ready to close so that my status is match and click save. And then I'm done. Oh, unless we close it out, unless it's our listing, then we close it in the MLS. So I tend to do those right away just because they're easy to forget. So I would just then go to the MLS and update that information. Does anybody have questions on that?
Hey, Jess, after you save it, should you submit it?
Sure. Let's do that just to make sure we don't have any errors. Because once it is closed, we cannot make changes to it. So it's a good idea to submit. Thanks, Tia. And we got a successful submission. So we know that this is now updated in Dash. It also is a good thing to submit after changing statuses, because if maybe this was only submit, maybe this was a still active, like, oh, the paperwork never got turned in, the MLS never got updated. So this is maybe still in an active status, and then suddenly we're going to close. Well, with Dash, it has 2 databases, and we always want it to be in that pending database before we change that status, just to make sure that it's not, it doesn't have any errors, or it won't submit to Dash, and then it just becomes an issue down the road with ePay and such. Any other questions? I will say when we represent both sides, I do require closing cover sheets from each agent. I don't allow one agent to fill that out, only because there may be different commission amounts, there may be different circumstances, there may be a referral that one doesn't. So I would submit 2 loops to Erin, even though it may be on the same record, even if they're in the same office. So I do require both of those, and then I would just tag both the loops with that. The only other thing then after that is then once Erin's or whoever the commission specialist is done, if you want to check the status, they'll go in, and then when they process their part, they're going to look at all these documents. They'll go in and approve them, and these don't match. I just threw some in there and renamed them. They'll go in, approve them. If there's an issue, they'll return it to you, and you'll be notified, or they're really good at calling and letting you know. And then they will just change it from ready to close to closed. And that's a good way also to be able to go back and check your statuses. I do recommend every so often going into dotloop and in your office. And I always do a search with my filters. So I do go in and I search the review stages. And in this case, I'm going to do contract needs review, listing needs review, and I do ready to close. Particularly this ready to close, because sometimes agents use that closing workflow, and that closing workflow doesn't notify the admin, it notifies the closing department. So sometimes I just go in maybe once a week and just review or just check for those statuses to see if there's anything I missed, if it needs to be updated. This one, oh, I have one more thing. So you can see here, same thing. And then I just update this one. This one's clearly done, so we'll just give it an update. Sometimes we do forget. There is one more thing I need to do. And once I have processed, oops, and then you do have to remember to turn your filters off or it won't. So those are all clearly done, but sometimes we don't get notified though of those ready to close, and then you do come to the closing time and you haven't processed. The one last thing I do is just mark the loop sold, so that the, what is it called? Testimonial tree, so that it notifies testimonial tree that this is a sold property, and it will reach out to their people if they're opted in. And then we've gotten a lot of reviews on it, so it's just one thing to remember to update that status. And that's really all the closing department, or as far as that. Does anybody have questions?
Does it matter when you change it to sold on dotloop? I mean, is there a rule about
definitely after it's sold? But not really. I try to do it while I'm in there, just as part of the process, so it's not forgotten. You can also do it from the main screen if you go back, but I do try to navigate, or to keep up on these. My sort is last updated, so that's also helpful, because typically agents are in there doing stuff right prior to close or something, but you can also see they're done right here. So I do update those statuses for them, but it just helps with some of the organization and such.
So when the deal's done, you can put sold.
Yep. Yep, I do sold and then try to do a Facebook post on it. Just make sure that we have permission, I guess, for the pictures if it's not our listing. Or do we still have to give credit to the listing agent on those?
I haven't done it.
Yes, if we have the buyer, you want to reference who had, you don't have to reference the agent, you have to reference the brokerage.
Okay. Fair enough. But that's really all on the closing part of it. And again, you know, most of the work is done prior to that point as far as getting the information entered, which could be a whole nother call, just because it is a little bit circumstantial where it just depends on who we represent. If it's our listing, it's a different brokerage. So there's just some differences in that, but there will be with that to follow. And probably cover dashboard with that, unless somebody has a specific thing on dashboard right now they would like. Carrie, you got anything to add? Julie?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Once you're done with this, I don't know if you can stay on. I guess Amy's not on, so I can't ask her. I have a couple questions on the Escanaba.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I'm. That's all I have. If nobody has questions or anything like that.
Great.
No, I think you covered it very well, Jess, and Patty. I think I know what your question is going to be, and it might be beneficial to some of the other ones here.
Well, I don't know how to check it because I was going to reach out to Amy, but I knew this was coming on today, so I talked to Wendy, and I guess she's gone in and with Heather only doing a few hours a week, and they don't have an ASC yet. I guess she's gone in and she's actually done a couple closings, submitted them to the hub, but I don't know if she's done the account tech stuff. And she kind of got confused on what I was asking her. So is there a way I can check, I guess?
To see what activity she's done, or? Yeah,
what she's closed out and whether or not she's go into account tech and did that part of it, or is she's just submitting to close in Dotloop to the hub?
I mean, I would probably utilize your dashboard at that point, or do your recently updated.
Okay.
From Dotloop to see which loops have been updated recently. But you could also do a property search by status, and you could do them by pendings, pending and ready to close.
Okay.
I would maybe do that, and then I would do pending.
Yeah, well, I just wrote down how to look it up for the loop. That's when she told me she did a couple. I reached out to her to ask her who was doing her closings because I offered, but nothing's been submitted to me. And she said that Heather showed her, and she's been submitting to close now that they have the hub. And when I asked her about the account tech stuff, and she was like, yeah, I figured that out, but I guess I don't know for sure.
Sure. This is not a live version. I'm just in a training part, so it's not going to be accurate. Oh, I was. Oops.
If she, if Amy was able to close that out, then that does mean that either Amy or Wendy did the account tech portion.
Okay.
We wouldn't close it out. Like as a commission specialist, I wouldn't close it out if the account tech piece of it wasn't completed.
Okay. Well, that's what I was going to check with Amy if she got any closings from her and she was able to close everything out.
I know that Amy mentioned, I think I talked to her yesterday. I think she mentioned that Wendy reached out to her on, I want to say Monday, with a bunch of closings. And so her and Amy were able to work through it together and get those closed out.
Okay, good.
So I know that was at least the case on Monday. I'm not sure how things were handled beyond that.
I told her I was available to help her out putting things in account tech, or if she needed help with the closings.
Oh, that's awesome.
Until they get an ASC. So I just wanted to make sure that,
yeah,
we're able to work it all out until they get one in there. So
I'm going to guess that Amy or someone would reach out if they were missing information, or if they were getting stuff submitted.
So yeah, Wendy's trying to stay afloat and do it, but I told her I was here if she needed help. So
awesome.
Sure. Well, that's all I have. If nobody has any other questions, or if anybody ever wants to offline or has, a question they don't, they want just a one-on-one, go ahead and reach out. We can always get something scheduled. And I am in the works of getting some more training on adding transactions and dashboard cleanup. So look for that to come too.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for your time. I appreciate it. And thank you, Jessica, for hosting. As always, reach out as any questions come up. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thank you.